Insurance, consider Geico.com after 75 years. It's pretty simple. They know what they're doing. Geico.com. They'll just save you more on your insurance. Doug Gottlieb around the corner. Jenny Taft joining us today. You know, one of the reasons I'm into Ben Simmons, and I have compared him to a little bit of Magic Johnson because I was watching Magic Johnson. I was a sportscaster when Magic broke into the league. And, you know, one of the advantages of being around all these years is I've watched Wilt play, and I've watched Magic, and I've watched Bird. People forget how great Larry Bird was. When he broke into the league, they were saying the same things about Bird they said about LeBron. Oh, my God, I've never seen a 6'10 guy do that. I love Ben Simmons. I think he's got a little LeBron, more Magic, though, than LeBron. And remember this. Let's think about the all-time great Lakers. There's been about 6 Lakers, and these are some of the greatest players in the history of the NBA. Wilt and Jerry West and Kareem and Kobe and Shaq and Magic. Now, Magic Johnson was never as gifted as Wilt. He could never shoot like Jerry West. He didn't have the unstoppable shot like Kareem. He wasn't as athletic as Kobe. And he wasn't as physically imposing as Shaquille O'Neal. Yet Magic Johnson's the greatest Laker of all time. Even though he wasn't as physically imposing as Shaq, as a 6'9.5" point guard in an era when most were 6'1.5", he could be physically dominating. At one point, they asked him to play center in the NBA Finals. He did for a night and scored 42 points against a real NBA center. Magic is the greatest Laker of all time, and he was never as gifted truly as Wilt, as physically imposing as Shaq. Never had the unstoppable shot or could shoot like Jerry and couldn't jump and maneuver in the air like Kobe Bryant. But he did so many things at a B+, A- level. And that leads me to Ben Simmons. There are some great all-time Philadelphia 76ers. You know, Julius Erving, Moses Malone, Allen Iverson, and Charles Barkley. Ben is not as flamboyant or as athletic as Dr. J. He's not as unstoppable and physically imposing as Moses. He's not as dynamic as Allen Iverson. And he's not as intimidating as Barkley. But he, like Magic, could be better than all of them. That's the thing about Magic. That's the thing about Ben Simmons. Magic was never the best at any one thing. He was just really good at everything. If you needed 28 points, he'd deliver. You needed 19 assists and 13 rebounds, he'd deliver. Westbrook is paralyzed at times by the triple-double. Magic did it, and nobody cared. We all knew that Magic could do it every night. He was a 6'9" point. He could have gotten a dozen rebounds every night. But Magic was about winning. He was athletic when he needed to be. He was intimidating when he needed to be. And he could hit a jumper when he absolutely had to hit a jumper. That's what's remarkable to me about Ben Simmons. He can do so many things. The other night, the Miami Heat begged him to shoot because the knock on him is, and by the way, this was the knock on Magic coming out of college. Google it, look it up. Ben can't shoot. And the Heat backed off. And Simmons had 14 assists because he's so big, 6'10" as a guard. It opened up these wide open passing lanes. And at 6'10", he can see over other guards. The kid is absolutely special. I want to shift to this. A week ago, there was a story, and there was a lot of pushback on this story. The story was that Tom Brady was leading an open revolt of Bill Belichick, that Tom Brady was forcing Gronk, manipulating Gronk, nudging Gronk to poke Belichick in the ribs. That has officially been confirmed by Gronk. Gronk yesterday was at Gillette Stadium. He's not showing up to camp. He went to a motocross event, and they asked him after, "Are you going to camp?" He said, "No, I've got dirt biking to work on." Poke, poke, poke. He would not say that if Tom Brady was not saying, bother Belichick, taunt Belichick. That confirmed the story. We have audio of Gronk, video of Gronk saying he was afraid of Belichick midseason last year after a game to talk about an injury. Now he's taunting him. He would not taunt him if Tom Brady was not in lockstep. Yesterday, another story came out from Mike Florio, ProFootballTalk.com, that Gronk and Brady are still absolutely irritated over the Malcolm Butler benching in the Super Bowl. Tom Brady has gone Hulk Hogan 1996. He has become the heel. He's turned. And I don't know how it ends. Does Tom Brady get a public apology or retire? Does Gronk retire? Does Gronk get used as a trade piece? I saw this on the internet this weekend. A young man put it together where it was Tom Brady and Gronk going Hulk Hogan 1996, going heel. Do you remember that? Hulk was always the good guy, and then in the mid-90s, Hulk Hogan came out and went heel and started beating all the good guys. And this video on internet was absolutely hysterical. But it really told a story that for years and years, Brady was the good soldier. He took pay cuts. He delivered the message. Even if he disagreed with Belichick, he was his messenger. Those days are officially over. Who knew that Malcolm Butler had this much influence in the history of this dynasty? He intercepted a Russell Wilson pass to give Tom another ring. And when Belichick benched him, it appears to be unraveling the dynasty. Gronk, I got dirt bike racing to do.
I was there, Colin. He told me as well. I asked him, yeah.
You were there?
Yeah, I was there. I talked to him about it. Yeah, he was mum. But he does love his racing. But it was, there was a clear message that he was, you know what, you could tell. He knew what he was doing. He knew what he was saying.
This wasn't accidental.
Yeah.
The media didn't bum rush him. He wasn't caught off guard. He'd thought about it.
Oh, for sure.
He knew the media would be there, our Jenny Taft.
Yeah.
He was asked about it, and he said, hey, I won't be at the Patriots camp, which, by the way, is in this same stadium. I've got dirt bike racing. We have ourselves, folks, a revolt confirmed, led by Tom Brady. Jenny with the news.
No. Heard on the news. This is the Herd Line News.
It was incredible to see Gronk there. It really was. I mean, he had a clear message. It was interesting. I think we're going to hear more about that.
Yeah, we're getting to an interesting time at the end of this dynasty.
Boy, all right, you teed me up even perfectly for this next story because we're sticking with the Patriots. Multiple reports saying 2 weeks ago, Lamar Jackson took a trip to New England, and the organization is intrigued and impressed by the quarterback. And we know the Patriots do their homework, right? They are the best at what they do.
Right.
Are you surprised by their possible interest in Lamar Jackson?
Well,
he wasn't great at the combine.
Listen, they're not going to get Darnold,
Yeah.
okay, and I think that's who they take, and they're not going to get Rosen. So what they're saying is, of the remaining players, who do we think we can get? Who's the most talented quarterback who will be available in the mid to late first round? And I think the answer is obviously, and I agree with this, it's Lamar Jackson, who I think's an NFL player. I just don't think he is ready to take over a franchise. I don't think Josh Allen is either. And I have some accuracy concerns and running around concerns getting hurt. But it doesn't really surprise me. We know they never got into a season under Belichick without a backup succession plan at quarterback. They don't have one. He always has a young guy. He uses good draft picks, even when Brady was in a prime, so I'm not surprised at all.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit more about those quarterbacks. And I listen to your show a lot, Colin, when I'm not here. I know how you feel about Baker Mayfield. I feel differently. I covered him all year.
Yes.
Blown away by him. There's just something about him. We can agree to disagree there. But what do the Cardinals think about Baker Mayfield? They don't just like Baker Mayfield. They love him. That's according to Peter King. They love the guy. Baker Mayfield.
Well, okay, then trade up, because you're the only NFC team that doesn't have a future game plan at quarterback.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest, by the way, Colin right, Colin wrong, 30 minutes from now, top of the hour. I think one of the big surprises for me in this entire lead up to the draft is, what is Arizona doing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, they are the only NFC team that doesn't have a plan at quarterback. By the way, their division, McVay and Goff, Garoppolo, Kyle Shanahan, Pete Carroll, Russell Wilson, that's the best three quarterbacks in a division, and they don't have a plan. So, to me, Arizona's been the surprise of the pre-draft stuff. That they are not moving up at all surprises me.
And finally, Green Bay Packers quarterback Aaron Rodgers, he has joined the local ownership team of the Milwaukee Bucks. So we don't know exactly what his investment was. That was not made public, but he's going to be an owner. And I know you've chatted a lot about what he means to that fan base. There he is with Danica Patrick at the game.
She seemed overwhelmed by that NBA experience.
Really? Too much for him?
I don't know. She didn't seem like she was into it.
I mean, Danica, I love Danica. I've interviewed her a lot before, too. But, I mean, I feel like the attention always on them. But it's kind of a good move, I think, for him to show that he's committed to that fan base.
Yes, and I think there's talk now that he's frustrated with the Packers. So this is a nice – I mean, he didn't buy much of it. He's probably got half of 1%. Yeah. But he's got a lot of money. I think the NFL is a good investment. NBA is a good investment. And in the end, if there's any questions about his commitment to the area – because he is an odd fit. Like Aaron Rodgers, California cool, looks like a model, most talented guy, Green Bay. Favre kind of fit there. Aaron doesn't. So I think it's kind of a commitment that, hey, I'm in it long term for the community. Jenny with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
Having watched the NBA forever, there's a reason they created these signs, Beat LA. Is that basketball is a sport where if you hit the best player, a Magic, a Bird, you can really dominate for a decade. Tim Duncan, you're going to be in the finals race or discussion every year for like 12 or 15 years. Well, with LeBron James, everybody's always like, well, he's good, but the refs, the NBA's rigged. And my argument's like, dude, the baton is not offered much. Indiana had a chance, it was offered. Let's bring on Doug Gottlieb, Fox Sports Radio, after our show, filled in for me Friday. Okay. I led my show today. I said, this is not a great Cavs roster. You had the ball. You had the lead. You're at home. And I'm not a big fan of criticizing coaching. You played. I let you do that. You have coaches in your family. I got to be honest. Why wasn't Sabonis on the floor? Why in the last 3 minutes did they look helter-skelter? What did you make of Indiana's last 3-4 minutes of basketball?
I do think it was a bit of a coaching mismatch. I thought that Nate McMillan made a similar mistake to the one Billy Donovan made last year. Domas Sabonis started last year most of the season for the Thunder, and then they didn't play him in the playoffs, I guess because he's young. And I know that Miles Turner is the starting center,
right?
But they got back into that game, and they were better on their switches with Domas Sabonis, who LeBron couldn't get a step on.
Listen, this is right. Sabonis was their best player for a stretch in that game.
I don't know if he was their best player, but look, the way basketball works now is everybody switches everything, right? And so, except maybe if you have a small guard to which you hide him, and that's the one guy you don't switch with. And what you want for LeBron James, who looked tired, was pacing himself, but also couldn't get a step on most any of the Pacers, with the exception of Miles Turner. He was abusing Miles Turner on switches late in the game, not playing him, and then their inability to run any sort of play. And I get that.
Thank you.
And I mean, they ran nothing. They just ran spread out, let Victor Oladipo drive. If the help comes, he passes. If not, he takes a shot. You played the Ben Simmons clip of him, going right down Broadway dunking the basketball. Why is that open? Because you have J.J. Redick setting a ball screen to which you don't want to leave or switch off J.J. Redick. Right. And the Heat get confused, and you can give Ben Simmons all the credit you want. I mean, it's just a complete miscommunication defensively for Miami. You have to switch and attach yourself to J.J. Redick. They don't switch. Who you got, it looks like who's on first, and Ben Simmons gets an easy dunk. This is the same thing, by the way, that happened to the Pacers. They lost Kyle Korver in transition. Then they lost attachment with Kyle Korver. He hits 2 big threes. Then the entire team runs to Kyle Korver, and LeBron James goes one-on-one and gets a dunk.
Yeah.
I thought it was a lack of communication defensively and a lack of adjustments to the actual game by Nate McMillan. And then I have no idea what their offensive game plan was other than let's give it to our point guards or give it to our best guard and hope they create a shot.
Listen, if you watch, it's not that scientific. If you watch the Pacers late, 2 things were obvious. Offensively, they were just kind of it looked like a Y. Like the Y when you're like the best player gets the ball and everybody kind of watches him and you hope he breaks the guy down. It's like, this is the NBA, it's the playoffs. Nate, you've been coaching in this league for 15 years. When I watch the Celtics in moments, I'm like, okay, they got babies too. Tatum's a baby. Jalen's a baby. But they have a point of view on crucial possessions. They have thought about it schematically. It's like we always say about New England, Doug. In those big moments, the Super Bowl, they don't even have to have the ball. They have been practicing for the moment.
I'll look, in fairness to Nate McMillan, they got away with it at other times in the series because Game one, Victor Oladipo couldn't be stopped. He was making
Right.
a jump shot. This is more who he is. He's not a consistent jump shooter.
That's right.
That's why he struggled playing with Russell Westbrook. He has to have the ball. He's not really a shooter. He's more of a slasher.
Yeah.
On the other hand, he doesn't shoot a high enough percentage to demand this volume of shots. So in game one, at the end of the game, the Cavs are double teaming him, and they can just play off the double team. Same thing happened in game three. But the Cavs are like, look, he's not making shots. We're not going to double team
By the way,
him.
we want to elevate guys to stardom. You can say I did it with Ben Simmons. I've always kind of believed in an it quality. In our business,
Yes.
in acting, in arts and entertainment, I've worked in this business 40 years. I can listen to a guy and go, oh, there's an it there. He's young, he makes mistakes, but like that guy's got it. Let's elevate him. Let's give him a good producer. Like Ben Simmons to Magic. People are freaking out. People forget when Magic came into the league. I can remember reading Sports Illustrated. People were like, he doesn't play defense. He doesn't have a shot yet. Ben Simmons isn't perfect, but Doug, there's a magic thing there.
No question. What I said a couple years ago at the Super Bowl,
yes,
when I told you he was the best one and done, it's because when you watch him, and I think people are seeing it now, the game is easy to him. He's a natural passer. And that's something that we just don't have a lot of.
Right.
Naturally, not only does he want to pass the ball, but he sees it and it just happens.
Yes.
And it's something you cannot teach.
You can't.
It's innate. It's God-given. You can't teach it. So there's a little bit of Magic. There's a little bit of LeBron. There's a little bit of Lamar Odom, who he grew up idolizing. He's still a jump shot away from being a superstar.
Right.
But the fact is that they've surrounded him with guys that can make shots, that can open up the floor, and the way in which the game's officiated. And this is really important for people inside the NBA, for people outside the NBA to understand why LeBron's been able to be dominant, even though his own jump shot has gone up and down through his career. We've taken guys that are the size of Ben Simmons. They used to be Antonio Davis, right? There's no power forwards on the floor.
Right.
There's nobody in the lane anymore.
Right.
You have maybe one shot blocking center and sometimes none. And so if you can create contact, even without a jump shot, Giannis Antetokounmpo can't make a jump shot, but he's almost unstoppable for most of the game because he's so big, so long, he gets a step, and there's nobody there to bang him around to cause any sort of. So I see it with Ben Simmons. And I agree with you. I would only point out this about LeBron, is that, yes, the Pacers missed an opportunity, and that series appears to be over, even though it's 2-2. What's going to ultimately take down LeBron is the war of attrition. Is a 6-game series or 7-game series against the Pacers, is a 6 or 7-game series against the Raptors, and then a 6 or 7-game series. Even if they get to Golden State, I think they're going to be so worn down. If you watched him in the second half, he was pacing himself. He wasn't playing.
You're talking LeBron.
LeBron, because he was absolutely exhausted.
He was.
Because he has to carry this team.
Listen, man. I'm going to go into this later, but let's shift into Westbrook. So we gave Westbrook the MVP last year because there was a sympathy. KD left. He didn't have much to play with. He had to, and it was like he got triple doubles, and we're like, you know what? There was a little bit of a sympathy.
Yes.
So Kyrie leaves LeBron. His roster is garbage. This is as bad a roster as he's had for like 10 years. And by the way, I'm watching LeBron right now, and he has to either score or set up the score. They don't score. So here's Westbrook, Mr. MVP. In that fourth quarter against Utah, he didn't take a shot. We crushed Kobe for it. We kill LeBron if he doesn't shoot in the first 10 minutes of a game. Doug, some of this criticism is earned by Westbrook.
There's no question, but I also, if you remember, when Kobe didn't take a shot, he did against the Phoenix Suns.
Yes.
He also did against Oklahoma City. He was trying to prove a point.
Right.
And I think Russell was trying to prove a point. I don't mind what he said post-game. He's like, look, basically he's saying Ricky Rubio can't shoot. He made some shots.
But let's go
tonight.
back to your Kobe thing. If he's trying to prove a point, we savaged Kobe for that. I remember we were like, Kobe's an egomaniac.
Yes. So is Russell.
But
Russell Westbrook grew up idolizing.
Okay, but let's just say it about Westbrook. He can go kooky Maduki.
No question. I don't think there's any question. But I also don't think there's any, like, if you think that series is over, it'll be game 6 in Utah, right? Game 6 in Utah doesn't usually work out well for the Jazz. Don't believe me? Last year. Don't believe me? Jordan in 97, Jordan in 98.
So you still like OKC?
Yeah, because they're the better team, better roster.
By far.
Yeah, I mean, look, you and I are both on the Quinn Snyder train. We watched him in person against the Clippers last year.
Yes.
He does an incredible job.
Yes.
And Donovan Mitchell's going to be a star. And I love the way they're playing. Like, he's coaching them to the series lead. But I do think that water ultimately finds its level in a 7-game series. We still haven't seen a breakout game from Carmelo. Russell hasn't shot well the past couple games. And I do think that Russell, he likes the me against the world mentality. I think he'll play well. I think that series is far from over. But you're not wrong about Russell Westbrook and his ego and his need for people to tell him how great he is. The 38 rebounds in the last 2 games so he could average a triple-double this year to do it for the 2nd consecutive year. I think that's part of what makes Russell Russell. And you're not wrong that he's like Kobe. That's who he idolizes, and that's who OKC is going to have to wrap their arms around because that's who they have for the long-term future.
Okay, listen, man. Gronk, mid-season, literally stepped to the mic and was nervous, anxious about talking about an injury. He fumbled around. I don't want to talk about it. We get in trouble. Gronk, knowing Jenny Taft and others were going to come to him at the bike event at Gillette Stadium, knowing they would come up, he's like, no, I'm not going to do camp. I'm into dirt bike racing.
Yeah.
To me, it confirms they are still ticked off at Belichick. I mean, Tom Curran, when I lived out in New England, was a legitimate source.
Yep.
Mike Florio now comes in. I don't know Mike well, but you have multiple people now saying Brady's pissed, and he is defending people, going to social media. He's in the ear of Gronk. He's in the ear of Amendola. We have Amendola 5 times in the car saying, we've still never gotten an explanation. I do believe Brady is leading this thing.
Well, I think the Brady and the Gronk thing are completely separate. Look, Rob Gronkowski switched agents to Drew Rosenhaus. And then remember last year he got an incentive laden where they didn't really change the base salary. They just loaded up with incentives. Gronk's deal is about money. Tom Brady's deal is about legacy, managing Giselle, who clearly doesn't want him to play football anymore.
Right.
And, how he's handled by Belichick. But if Bill Belichick did not have ultimate power and control of the New England Patriots, he'd be the head coach of the New York Giants. It's a franchise that he deals with. It's a franchise that he respects. It's a franchise that Bill Parcells once coached. I know that you think this all has to do with Malcolm Butler. I don't. I think the Butler thing was weird. I think it's a good storyline. It probably changed forever that particular Super Bowl. I would point out that if you're Bill Belichick, he says, look, we still had the ball down 5, and if not for the strip sack, we probably win that game, even without Malcolm Butler missing a field goal, missing an extra point, and we lost our second best wide receiver to injury early in the game. For Bill Belichick, he says, I wouldn't have gotten to 8 Super Bowls if I wasn't willing to sacrifice one of my most talented players who wasn't playing well, who wasn't on the team playing, who checked into the hospital when he didn't know what was like. Look, if Malcolm Butler, if you knew something was wrong with you, you go to the team doctor. He checks into the hospital. So imagine how that filters down to Bill Belichick. He's in the hospital. We're moving on without him. So I know you think this all has to do with Butler. I don't. I think there's separate individual reasons why guys are holding out or not showing up. And do I think that ultimately they've been together too long and there's going to be a break? Absolutely. But if Bill Belichick didn't have command and control, he'd be the coach of the Giants. Ask anybody in football. That would be his ultimate out, and he had that opportunity in the offseason.
Doug Gottlieb, Fox Sports Radio after our show. Top of the hour where Colin was right, where Colin was wrong. Coming up next, each of these quarterbacks heading to the NFL draft, there's a word to describe each one. One word doesn't bother me at all. That's coming up next.